Welcome back into the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast, part number 4 with our closer here, Rob Veno at Rob Veno Sports on Twitter. You can check him out at wagertalk.com. And guys, we are going down 395-396 Central Michigan, South Alabama, down to the end of the card. I'll hit the last few here because we had a big section here with Robbie Veno. He likes to go down into detail, like always. Great for the listeners, Rob. You're a fan favorite, I'll tell you. All the comments, they love you, Rob. Love having you aboard as well, my friends. So welcome on in. How you feeling, buddy?
We're good, Drew, off of a very nice 6-1 college football weekend last weekend. Now that we've got about 3 to work from, we have a little bit more of a fact base, I guess, to lean on. And we have injury situations to consider. So it's always a little bit better when we get to see these teams play a couple of times rather than a lot of the week one guesswork that we have to do, because you're not really sure how these teams are going to come out.
Sure. That's a great way to put it. I mean, there's not as much betting into uncertainty in weeks 3, 4, 5, 6 as there is in 1 and 2. So, Rob, let's start off here. 395-396, a little Maction Sunbelt, Central Michigan versus South Alabama. USA minus 16.5 in Mobile, 49 being the total. You liking anything with the Chippewas and the Jaguars?
Well, one thing we don't like, Drew, is the Central Michigan defense right now. My goodness, 507 yards per game allowed is crazy. 538 to New Hampshire. So they've had it rough. The pass defense hasn't been good, 371 per game through the air. And an old MAC quarterback that we knew well, Drew Carter Bradley, came here from Toledo to quarterback USA starting last year, and he's hitting 72% of his passes. So they can make hay through the air, probably on the ground as well. What's interesting to note about Central Michigan is they're almost trying to shorten games on purpose because their defense is so bad. When you take a look at their run-pass balance, and this is not skewed by one game being run heavy. Central Michigan right now, where their run-pass play calling percentages are concerned, they run the ball 66.3% of the time. You're not going to find anybody outside of Army, Navy, Air Force that run the ball 2/3 of the time. In Central Michigan, with the lousy defense, I guess just trying to hope that they can hang on to the football. They really haven't been able to do it because they've been beaten up pretty good in most of their games. And they're going to try and run it here against a South Alabama defense that's allowing less than 100 per game on the ground. So difficult road for Central Michigan, both offensively and defensively. I would say that South Alabama, and generally speaking, Drew, just theoretically, you might take this as a look-ahead game because they're such a big favorite, double digit. But USA's South Alabama is one of those teams that actually wants to be the group of 6 type of champion type team. They had those aspirations coming in, got beat right away by Tulane, but obviously destroyed Oklahoma State last week. So I think they could win by margin. It's still less than 17, and you can't really convince me that they can't hold Central Michigan under 2 touchdowns and score into the 30s themselves.
Next game up here, Robbie, 397-398, 7 o'clock Eastern, Nevada and Texas State. Big number here for the Bobcats in San Marcos, minus 17-point home favorites, 60 being the total. You think they're worthy of this big number at home? That offense can run it up a little bit on the Wolfpack?
Well, the offense can run it up, that's for sure. But all of a sudden, 4 weeks in, and Texas State's a 17-point favorite. I don't know that we saw that coming. G.J. Kinney, obviously, a couple of years ago at Incarnate Word, last year exactly, at Incarnate Word, running that air raid offense. He's a disciple of that Texas Tech system, and they do sling it around, and they don't stop. I mean, they don't know how to put the brake on at the end of games. They'll continue to score. But again, you're asking them to lay 17 points. Now, they are 3-0 against the point spread so far this year, twice as a dog. I think once as a favorite, big favorite last week against Jackson State, and they covered rather easily. I think they won by 43. Nevada, when I looked at it, Drew, they lose last week 31-24 to Kansas, which at surface value would indicate that they played the game close. But they were destroyed total yardage-wise, lost the total yardage number by 180 yards. I think it was 178 to be exact. So the final score is not really indicative of how badly they were beaten by Kansas. And for what it's worth, offensively, Nevada's only gained 263 and 266 yards total the last 2 weeks in each of their last two games. So they're not moving the football. If they're forced to play catch up here, I wonder if they can. I'm not positive enough about the ability of the Texas State defense yet to lay 17 points, but they should win the football game, and we're going to find out if the defense has come along. Let's put it this way, too, that they did play Texas San Antonio and only allowed 20, but when I looked at that game, remember, Frank Harris was, wobbling around on one leg in that game, took a shot in the foot and came back in. So I don't know, we might have to take that one with a grain of salt because Baylor did chew this defense up. So I think Texas State wins, but I don't know that I want to lay 17 with them yet.
Staying in the Lone Star State, next game up here, Robbie, 399-400, 7:30 Eastern, Texas and Baylor. We're seeing the Longhorns minus 14.5 point road favorites, 49.5 the total in Waco.
Well, right then and there, 14, 49.5, we should correlate, right? It seems like a lower scoring game according to odds makers, and a big double-digit favorite. You would probably lean towards dog. And in fact, my first look, Drew, was to the dog here with Baylor. But I'm too afraid of the situation here. If we just take a look at Texas, they opened the season with a game against Rice, but they knew they had Alabama on deck, and they kind of had a walkthrough 31-10. Walkthrough, they still won by 21. They didn't play well in that game. But they go to Alabama. That's where their focus was, right? They beat Alabama. They come back. They play Wyoming last week. Know that they have their Big 12 conference opener on deck. They just come off the win against Alabama. So what do? They give us another walkthrough victory over Wyoming, I think, with their eye on this game. So judging by what they did the first time around when they were big favorites and had a big game on deck and went and beat Alabama, I'd have to believe that they're probably in that same mode again, which scared me off of playing Baylor here. Blake Shapen not going to play quarterback one more time. It's going to be Sawyer Robertson for the Baylor Bears. They haven't seen any offense like what they're going to see here. And what they did against Texas State wasn't good, right? Texas State's a really good offense, but it's air raid style. Texas a little more to the physical and athletic side, obviously more athletes than Texas State. So Texas might be able to score big numbers here. Stopping Utah with a backup quarterback was one thing. Playing Texas, something else, especially if Texas is focused.
Great start to the show here, Robbie. Guys, just a quick shout out to our friends at Viva Tequila Seltzer, sponsor of the show here, vivatequilaseltzer.com, the ultimate go-to for toasting those winning picks with only 88 calories, 0 carbs, no sugar, 4.5% ABV. Viva, the perfect match for celebrating those victories. Check them out, vivatequilaseltzer.com. Follow Rob on Twitter at Rob Veno Sports, breaking down the games here. Every game on the board, wherever you're downloading your podcasts at, search Every Game on the Board. We break down all the college football games. Next one up here, Robbie, battle for the boot. Arkansas and LSU, 7 o'clock Eastern, 55 being the total, minus 17 in the hook. That's Go Tigers in Baton Rouge.
Well, I'd like to think that Arkansas would have a bounce back game, right? They played BYU last week, and they got off to a quick start. And then they let BYU come back, hang 38 on them, and win that game straight up on Arkansas's home field, 38-31. I don't know exactly what happened there to distract them from what they were doing early, but it wasn't good in the end. And now they play LSU. I tell you, Drew, I'm a little bit, and maybe it's last week bias, right? Last week's bias, what we saw with our eyes would suggest to me that Arkansas could not stop BYU's offense, so they're not going to stop LSU's. And LSU scored at will against Mississippi State, so LSU should probably score a lot again. To me, the correlation of the two tells me that this total is probably a little bit too low. I saw 54.5 earlier. And LSU with the combination last week, that's not to say that Daniels to Neighbors is going to connect the way it did last week, but boy, did it ever connect. And that LSU offense is becoming more explosive by the week. Last year was a real low scoring game, and Again, I kind of live by the theory that coaches like to fix what went wrong first time around. So I think these two coaches, after seeing each other last year, was the first look at Brian Kelly for Sam Pittman. I think there's probably some adjustments to be made, more points to be scored. I'm looking at this one from a totals perspective. I think it'll get up and over.
Like it, Rob. Western Kentucky and Troy. Talk about, I was going to say up and over here too, Rob, but this Troy defense is pretty good. We're seeing a 59 being the total, and Troy actually laying 3.5. It's the home favorite. Some might be surprised by that with Western Kentucky, what can we say? Like a prize program of the group of five, but Troy's really coming on. So heading to Troy, Alabama here, Trojans -3.5 hosting the Hilltoppers, Robbie.
Yeah, I did play this one, Drew, and I did play it that way up and over. I think the number was 58 that I got. I think we're looking at 58.5 now. It's been on the rise since the opener, the total has. And a couple of things. Last year, they played 34-27. And to me, there's a lot of similarities to this game. Last year, Troy knew. I mean, Western Kentucky doesn't change their colors, right? They're going to come out and they're going to throw it, and they're going to throw it, and they're going to throw it. And Troy was a good defense last year, and they knew Western Kentucky was going to throw the football. Yet, Western Kentucky was able to get 29 first downs, throw for 406, complete 68.4% of their passes. I think that's important because when I look at Troy this year, I think what goes unnoticed is the fact that pass defense has allowed 67% completions to the two FBS teams that they played, Kansas State and James Madison. If you're going to allow 67% completions to Western Kentucky, which is a passing rhythm offense with all those short slants and screens, and then they hit the deep shots, we're probably going to be in a little bit of trouble. Austin Reed, the quarterback here, the returning quarterback for WKU, has been protected real well this year. In that game last year, they scored 27 and rattled off the yardage and offensive production that I stated earlier, even with Austin Reed being sacked 5 times. I don't know that he gets sacked 5 times here today or on Saturday because the offensive line has been better. So I think Western Kentucky, no matter what, they're going to speed up tempo, right? And they'll probably get enough possessions to where they get theirs. The other side of the equation, though, here is interesting, Drew. WKU can't stop the run right now. And Troy head coach John Sumrall came out and said that he thought his team got away from the run too soon last week against James Madison. They lose a heartbreaking game to James Madison, I think 16-14 on their home field. And he is committed, especially committed to running the football against this defense this week. He said, we're going to see a lot of Kamani Vidal, who obviously is their star running back. And there should be chunk yardage to be had, again, against the Western Kentucky defense, which has not played good whatsoever as far as defending the run is concerned. And when we think of Troy, Drew, I think the perception is, they're methodical, they're slow, and they might try to slow it down a little bit here. But when you check their plays per second and where they rank in the nation, they run a play just as fast as Central Florida does. They rank 32nd. They're tied actually for 31st, them and UCF, as far as plays per second is concerned. So Troy can go quick when they need to. They probably will a little bit here. I think it's a step down in class for Western Kentucky, who got to see Ohio State's defense last week, a defense that's allowed, I think, 20 points in 3 games. So even though Troy's good, they're not Ohio State good. I thought that, a repeat of last year was in the fold here. And if it goes 34-27 again, we cash an over ticket.
Robbie, I mean, you bring up a lot of great things there, like getting a little bit more in depth, like Troy Trojans running a play, like you said, just out the top 30 in the country, I think. And I go back and I look, because when I see that, I do the same thing, betting totals, because I want that pace if I'm going to be betting an over, and I want lack of pace if I'm going to be betting an under. And one thing I would warn people to watch out for is if they're always playing from behind, they're going to be going quicker, but they've only been playing really from behind, meaning like you're down multiple scores against Kansas State, only one of their games. So that is probably something to watch, maybe to get ahead of it. Another thing I wanted to add to what you were saying, Austin Reed, that's the quarterback for Western Kentucky's name, right? I saw him in person last year, and I watched a bunch of their games. If he has time to throw, he's a good quarterback. They're going to put up big numbers. But when he doesn't, like against the Ohio State, I think they just played a Big Ten team, then he's not the same quarterback, because like when you look at him in person, he's not one of those guys that's like athletically speaking going to like wow you. He's just a really accurate quarterback down the field. So if he has time to throw, I think Western Kentucky's going to be able to put up some big numbers. I guess it's just a matter of if you think Troy's going to be able to pressure him, but it sounds like you like their offensive line.
Well, and I think if I just refer back to last year's game, Drew, they sacked him 5 times, and he still threw for 406. So they pressured.
Oh, wow.
And he still completed 68% of his passes, still threw for 406. They still got 29 first down. So he's seen this defense already, and they've seen the offense as well. But Western Kentucky just does what they do. And talking about, back to your point about non-imposing looking quarterbacks, think of the guys that have run through this program, including Bailey Zappi. I mean, Bailey Zappi was not an imposing looking figure, but he wound up in the NFL based off of this system and his ability to walk up to the line of scrimmage, read, like you say, be accurate and know where the ball's going to go. And that's how they dissect people, this team. So I think after seeing Ohio State's defense last week, the game slows down a little bit for them. And plus, they know this opponent. I think they get theirs, but I really think Troy gets theirs as well, which is why I played over.
I like it. And guys, you can get the over right now at 58 is the low water mark, 58.5 at some other shops right now. As we're talking Thursday afternoon, if you like watching live, Rob Veno gets on at 5 o'clock Eastern as our closer, 5:05 actually. We do a little 5-minute buffer usually. And then wherever you're downloading your podcast at, every game on the board. Follow him on Twitter at Rob Veno Sports. Next game up here, Robbie, we got another Max Sunbelt. Buffalo and Louisiana Lafayette, 57.5 being the total. We're seeing the Ragin' Cajuns -10 at home.
How about ULL, Drew? They are playing pretty well again. I thought there might be a little lull in their performance, especially, last year was different because Billy Napier left. But they've gotten back to old standards here, or close to old standards here, at least philosophically, because they're running the football and they're running it well. Napier had them as a team that wanted to win both lines of scrimmage in Sun Belt competition, and he did, and brought them to multiple championship appearances inside that conference. Last week, they took on Trent Dilfer's UAB team, which is not the same looking team whatsoever. They don't look like a UAB product. They scored 41 points against them. Some of those came late. 31 the week before against ODU, 38 against an FCS Northwestern State before that. But I think the main thing and probably the reason why I wouldn't play this game, I looked at it total-wise, and that's where I'll start here real quick. I really wanted to play over because Buffalo's defense, I think Jamie Chadwell and Liberty showed us last week when they scored, I think, 50 on them, that Buffalo for 2 weeks in a row now has been a bad defense. ULL can probably get theirs. But unlike what I just talked about with Western Kentucky, where they don't know how to let off the gas pedal, ULL will let off the gas pedal. So totals, if you're up by margin with Lafayette, become very, very risky. Don't think I want to get involved there. You could get involved with the side because they're clearly the better team. And, does Buffalo want this road trip all the way down to Louisiana? I think the MAC season starts for them next week. We'll see how it goes, but I don't think much of Buffalo right now. Didn't play the game, but I would think if I had to choose, I'd rather be on the side. I think Lafayette has shown that they're probably the more physical of the two. For Buffalo, after seeing Liberty, maybe it slows down a little bit for them because Liberty's so good under Chadwell, but I would probably play ULL and let the total go. Again, that was my first look, but I just can't get there because I think they might be winning by margin and slow the game down in the fourth quarter.
Robin, what did you mean by UAB with Trent Dilfer not the same look? Just that they're going faster and scoring more points? Or that
and defensively, they just don't look like a UAB defense, right? I mean, they're getting ripped on the defensive side too. So it is, it's a polar opposite from what they were, right? With Bill Clark, they were more methodical. Now they're more extreme tempo and not as much defense. So, that point is always made, right, Drew, that these teams that go really, really fast put pressure on their defense because they come off the field so quickly sometimes. And maybe that's what's happening to UAB here.
Yeah, no, great point there, Robbie. Whatever happened to their old coach? he was like one of the better coaches out there. Is he still around, or he had
Yeah,
like a
I think
health
he just.
problem, right?
Yeah, I think he retired, Bill Clark.
Oh, interesting.
Nowhere in college football this year, so I think he did his job building that program, handed it over, and they're taking on a new look.
Rob, one I'll definitely have my eye on here. Auburn and Texas
Mm-hmm.
A&M, 11 a.m. local kick in College Station. It is Texas A&M taking money here, Robbie. They were -7 early in the week. I'm guessing a group jumped on them here. Now they're as high as -8.5, -8 pretty much across the board. 51.5 as my War Eagles head down and take on the Aggies. You liking anything here in College Station?
Well, I did like Texas A&M only because, again, you talk about a transformation a little bit here, Drew. And under Jimbo Fisher, since he's gotten there, the offense has been prehistoric. And he's been, the fan base not happy with the way the offense has played. But last year, and I think you and I talked about this the first week that we did this segment, when they went to Connor Wegman, they figured out they have a quarterback. And he's a thrower, and he's hitting 70% of his passes right now. And they've got a fleet of wide receivers, which is I shouldn't say very rare, but I'll say it's not usual for Texas A&M to have multiple wide receiving threats on the field. We don't know them as a air it out style football team, but that's kind of where their strength lies this year. So my questions for Auburn when I handicapped it was, are they good enough pass rush and secondary, because those two have to go hand in glove when you're playing a pass offense this good? Are they good enough to withstand A&M? And then B, under Hugh Freeze right now, reading a lot of quotes, Drew, and you're close to the program, but it seems like Hugh Freeze is already starting to make excuses for what's going wrong with Auburn, almost kind of buying himself right into year two. I don't know if they're fully integrated into what he wants to do with his personnel to where they can be their best. I think Hugh Freeze is going to do a good job there, but I just don't know that it's happening here in week 4. And if they get behind, can they chase? I'm just not sure of that. I would prefer A&M in this game. I still might bet A&M in this game, thinking they could win by 10 points. And really, it's on the basis of what I see out of Connor Wegman, the quarterback here, who's just been sensational. Like I say, 909 yards passing through 3 games and 70.5% completion. So A&M's a little bit different now too. And kudos to Jimbo for at least allowing his OC to call some plays now. Jimbo got out of the way and said, I won't call him anymore. Let somebody else call him. Maybe we can do something.
Sure. Yeah, that's always funny when they finally let up the reins there. Yeah, so many people texted me, calling me about like Auburn this weekend. It's kind of the first time they've been on the main stage. I know they played Cal. I just feel like it's such an unknown with the War Eagles. I really do, Robbie. I mean, they could be pretty good, but at the same time, you brought up the offense. Could they score if they get behind? They've really only scored against an FCS team. They haven't really put up points against a Division I college football team yet. So that's what worries me about betting Auburn. Plus the fact A&M's out recruited them like 4 straight years. I mean, when you look at recruiting rankings, which I like to do, Rob, they're like top 5 in the country in terms of like the last 4 or 5 years when you add up all of those classes. So that's what worries me a little bit as well, because Auburn hasn't recruited as well as they had in the past. Now, this past year they did, and I bet they will with Hugh Freeze. Whether it's by the book or not, I'm sure they're going to get in some good athletes. But yeah, just a little bit of unknown for me, Rob, with Auburn in this one.
Yeah, and that quarterback too, right? I mean, I talked a lot about Wegman for A&M, but Peyton Thorne at Indiana was a serviceable quarterback, and they're kind of splitting. Robbie Ashford takes the ball on the goal line. They have a special package for him, and he's going to get his. But neither one. Peyton Thorne is the starter. He hasn't been consistent enough. He can do the job, but again, it's a kid who's getting used to Hugh Freeze's system. He came from Indiana, where it just wasn't the same
Michigan
as what
State.
He's playing here, or Michigan State, excuse me, where it's not the same as it is here.
Rob, next one, speaking of the state of Michigan, we got Eastern Michigan at Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State's in the Sun Belt, right, Rob? I believe they. Yeah, so we got a lot of MAC in Sun Belt matchups here, which is fine by me. -6, that's Jacksonville State at home, 53 being the total. You liking the Sun Belt team again here against the MAC team?
I think I'm going to correct myself, Drew, and anybody watching who wants to correct us, I think Jacksonville State, now that I think about it, is Conference USA.
Okay.
And not Sun Belt, but somebody watching the show, throw it in the comments section and make sure we don't have our conferences cross. These teams change and cross over so
they
often.
step up. It's hard to keep up with.
Make our heads spin, right? But yeah, Jacksonville State under Rich Rodriguez, Drew, I think is probably the right side here. I like what they can do in his run-oriented spread with the design quarterback runs. However, you generally don't want to play against Eastern Michigan as an underdog. They have a really, really good record during this regime under Creighton. So I would think that fundamentally, I like the Jacksonville State side. I think they're the faster, more athletic team. Technically, I won't even bring situationals into it, but let's just bring the technical trends into it. Betting against EMU as an underdog has been a little bit hazardous to your health or to your bankroll, let's say, for a few years now. So I don't know that I want to do that. A look at the total real quick here. This could get to be high scoring. Remember, Rodriguez is going to go at pace. And Eastern Michigan, they'll try and stop it. They're not one to go with a lot of tempo. So interesting matchup for sure. There's been a lot of money on Jacksonville State. I just don't know that I'm with that money crowd in the belief that Jacksonville State is good enough. Remember, this is their first year in FBS. Are they good enough to be laying a touchdown here against a team that regularly covers as an underdog?
And they are in Conference USA, Rob. So I had that one wrong. And I'm looking at Conference USA here. It's kind of sleeper. There's a lot of like pretty decent teams. I didn't even realize that. But some of these teams are pretty good. That's going to be a fun conference to watch. Speaking of a fun one to watch, Rob, we got the degenerate of all degenerate specials here with New Mexico State and Hawaii, 12 midnight Eastern kicks. So burning the midnight oil here on Saturday night. I know I'll be watching it. I know you're a fan of these as well, Rob. 57.5 being the total, -3. That's the Rainbow Warriors at home. Aggies versus the Rainbow Warriors. New Mexico State, Hawaii, the get back game. You like anything?
I think it should go over, Drew. I really do. I think Timmy Chang's pass offense will find openings here against the New Mexico State defense. So far, what New Mexico State has seen as a defense is the offense of Massachusetts, not real good. The FCS offense of Western Illinois, for those who don't know, they come from the Missouri Valley Conference, but they're generally a bottom feeder that runs the football, not real good passing. New Mexico State played Liberty, a team that can move the football, 526 yards allowed, 276 through the air, 250 on the ground. Hawaii probably won't try and run it much, but if they can find any openings at all, the pass game will work even better. And then last week against New Mexico, they allowed 401 yards. So to me, the door's wide open for Hawaii to get chunk plays and score points. All that being said, Jerry Kill, our old buddy Jerry Kill, he's done a pretty good job down there at New Mexico State, and they've actually balanced out their offense. You look and see what they've done. Over 200 on the ground per game, over 200 through the air per game, and Hawaii hasn't played a lick of defense all season long. So I thought the total was going to be listed somewhere around 60.5, 61. It wasn't. So I think I have a little bit of wiggle room here, a little bit of value with this over. I can see both of these teams scoring some points here in this game. Jerry Kill not noted for wanting to go up and down the field where Hawaii is with their run and shoot. But I do think that, even if you don't want to go up and down the field, 210 on the ground and 250 through the air means you can move the football and score points. If they get 11, 12 possessions here, they'll do their share.
Yeah, that'd be a tough one to bet under that late at night. I'd be looking to go over as well. And Rob, one thing I'm just off the top of my head, Conference USA, it's all over the country. You got New Mexico, you got Liberty, you got FIU in Florida, and with New Mexico State playing Hawaii, and then they're going to have to be traveling. I bet you they have more travel miles outside of maybe Hawaii of any team in the country. So that's something to watch in this conference in terms of home field advantage, not because of like the crowd atmosphere, maybe sometimes because of that, but because of the travel each and every week all over the country towards the end of the year. Right. In my opinion, that's something to watch, Robbie. Is that something you have circled?
That's exactly when you want to watch it, Drew, is at the end of the year. New Mexico State got to go to Liberty early, but Liberty's a team in Virginia that's going to have to make some trips as well, and you'd rather make them early than late. So I think you're absolutely right. New Mexico State, a team that plays at altitude, going to Hawaii, their home field can be an advantage, and when you get to the islands, it could be a disadvantage. So it's something to look out for, especially as we get to the back half of the season.
Speaking of Liberty, that's the next game up here, guys. 4:13, 4:14, as we are making our way down in rotation order. 6:30 Eastern here. Liberty Flames at the Florida International Panthers. We have Liberty laying doubles on the road. It's -10 pretty much across the board. 54.5 being the total here, Robbie. You like anything with the Flames and the Panthers in West Miami?
What has gotten into the Panthers from West Miami?
They can score.
Yeah, they're registering some points. They're cashing some tickets. It's not something that we're accustomed to the last couple of years. But they took on North Texas, Drew. And North Texas, as we both know, that's a team that's going to score and score and score some more. And Florida International outscored 46-39. They go and travel to Connecticut, which is kind of the exact opposite of North Texas, and they play a grinded out game and win 24-17. So they've shown the ability, at least on that level, right, on group of 6 level, to be able, or group of 5, whatever they call themselves, on that level, they're able to play either way. But I don't know, Jamie Chadwell's just the head coach that, again, at this level, has really performed well. Coastal Carolina over the years, dominant when he was there. He gets to Liberty. He's only 3 games in, and already he's up to his old trick, scoring 50-plus points against Buffalo last week. Boy, I have a hard time thinking that the personnel is that much different between these two, right? I don't know how well you recruit to Liberty, but I think that the coaching edge is something substantial here. I think, in the end, again, these totals that are in the mid-50s with teams that can get to 40 by themselves, I think are relatively low. So if I were going to look, I'd probably play total here, Drew, thinking that FIU has shown us that they can put up points against a team that can put up points as well. Maybe something in the 38-20 vicinity, something like that sounds good to me, and probably cashes an over ticket. I wouldn't want to be on under. And I don't know that I want to lay this much with Liberty at this point in time, just because Florida International is showing some life. And honestly, I can't tell you how good they really are. Maybe this game will.
Guys, I think we got Rob, a little internet issue, but he'll likely be back on. One thing I would say about it, Robbie, is yeah, I'm with you. I'd be very careful laying the points against FIU, because I think FIU a little bit underrated. And sure enough, we saw this open 11.5 down to 10. So some other people kind of pushing it our way as well. Next game up, Charlotte in Florida. We got the Gators -4 touchdowns at home, 48.5 being the total. Don't like the spot for Florida, just beating Tennessee, biggest win in a while for the University of Florida. Charlotte coming in, I mean, if they can score some points, they can stay within this number, but not one that I've bet. Do you have anything in the swamp?
Yeah, we don't have to talk about every game, Drew, and this is probably one that we don't have to talk about. I'm sure Billy Napier will try and get his kids up. Whether or not he can is another story. At least up enough to cover this type of number. So Charlotte's not a good football team, but you don't want Florida in this particular spot.
Next one up, App State in Wyoming, 7 o'clock Eastern here, 42-43 being the total, low total, Rob. Wyoming -3. Interesting tidbit here. It's the highest elevation home field advantage east of the Mississippi at the highest elevation home field advantage west of the Mississippi. App State at Wyoming.
Yeah, and total is where it is, Drew. A, because it's a Wyoming game. B, because the weather's going to be a little bit rough there. This is a game where last I saw was 28-mile-an-hour winds, which means passing the football is probably out of the question in Laramie. But that's okay, because both of these teams would prefer to run it anyway. Appalachian State likes to run the football. Wyoming, we know, under Craig Bohl, runs the football. So To just blindly play under because of wind, I don't think makes a lot of sense. But I do think that the conditions are such where it's going to be very, very difficult to throw. And the defenses are probably good enough, especially on the Wyoming side, to keep this one to a low-scoring affair. I think Wyoming, after playing Texas, now coming home, Wyoming's probably in the better spot here, Drew. Remember, week 1, they took on Texas Tech out here and beat them. So to beat Appalachian State would be no surprise.
Sam Houston State in Houston, 38 being the total. Another, or actually, I've skipped one, Robbie. Can't do that. Colorado State and Middle Tennessee here. We get MTSU -3, 51 being the total. So we got the Colorado State at Middle Tennessee game in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Anything on this one?
Well, boy, we finally got to see Jay Norvell's offense in full gear. That air raid that he had in Nevada didn't run well last year at CSU, but boy, against Colorado last week, they did some damage through the air and probably can do some damage here. Now, you wonder about their emotional state, Drew, after that game. I mean, so much focus and energy was put into that game against Colorado that now you travel all the way to Tennessee from the Rocky Mountains. I mean, I'm not sure about their focus and motivation here, but I know their offense looks pretty good at this point in time, like it's rounding into form. And I think Middle Tennessee catches them at a very, very good time. So I would probably look to the home team. They have a situational scheduling advantage here. Teams are probably not quite equal personnel-wise, but equal enough to where MTSU, which in that Rick Stockstill offense, can create trouble for anybody. I'd probably lean MTSU.
421, 422, Sam Houston State in Houston. Houston -12 at home, 38 the total here, Rob.
Casey Keeler, ex-head coach at Delaware, close to my home here, at Sam Houston State. What a defense, Drew. Come off the FCS level, performed really, really well in their first 2 games. They held Air Force to 14 points. And we saw Air Force last week. Their offense looked terrific. So it's been 2 really good defensive efforts. That's why this total is so low. I think Houston could be in for a real dogfight here. The double digits. Now, Sam Houston hasn't scored whatsoever, but they've played extremely tight games despite not scoring. Houston's defense, not necessarily Air Force's. I think the double-digit points here, the people who took it right off the top, good move. And I think you still have room here to take it at this price. I think we're looking at like +12 or something. +12 with Sam Houston State. They can put 10 on the board. They'll cover this game.
Rob, I know I gave you to 422, and there's 4 games left. Do you want to hang around with me and break down Ohio State, Notre Dame down to the end, or you want to?
Yeah, we can do that, Drew, as long as I don't cut out on you.
No, you're fine, Rob. I mean, like we got Tease here on YouTube. Every game on the board. You're a fan favorite, man. I go through and look at the comments, guys. Feel free to chime in below. And Rob, the people love you. So Ohio State, Notre Dame, biggest game of the weekend, at least to the majority of college football fans out there. The Buckeyes -3 on the road, 55.5 being the total. I don't know, Rob. I'm kind of buying into this Irish, but I think the dog is barking here, man. I know it. Some people would say like it's a public dog, something like they're at home. That team looks good. They got a really good quarterback. Give me the points with the Irish. How do you feel?
Well, first, let me go ahead and recognize Teese. And in that comment, he mentioned Buford. Those 2 guys are loyal viewers of Ski's show on StreamYard. Okay. So when I team up with Ski and we do shows together, those guys are always present in the chat. Love them both. Excellent handicappers, the 2 of those guys. Mm-hmm. They bring a lot to the table. So thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate you sticking with us here on every game on the board. And they do, as a routine, Drew, real quick, I don't mean to go off the rails on you, but as a routine, they like to guess before I come on air with Ski what color polo I'd be wearing for the day. So that's a reference to the yellow shirt. I don't know what the odds on yellow were today, but I'm sure they're straightening it out and paying out to the winners over there. Ohio State, Notre Dame, back to business here. Something's got to give here, Drew. Both of these defenses have been terrific to start the year. And Ohio State in big games hasn't come up real big defensively. So it's going to be interesting to see if they do here against Sam Hartman, who is a legit NFL first rounder, right, at quarterback. I'm not saying anything everybody watching doesn't know already, but it's going to be a big test for Ohio State to see if they can stop Notre Dame offensively here, this passing game. I think the key to the entire game for both sides, well, I'll start with Ohio State. I think it's pass rush. If they can rush the passer, I think they'll create a little bit of havoc. But to that point, Sam Hartman dealt with that a lot at Wake Forest, and he's got better athletes around him now. So I wasn't totally sold on this Notre Dame program right out of the gate, but I am now. Offensively, they're going to be tough. And on the other side, Kyle McCord showed last week. I mean, Ohio State, the questions into last week were, what's wrong with the offense? What's wrong with the offense? The offense is broke, and they scored 63. It's Western Kentucky, I know, but I think the 63 raises their level of confidence. Again, it's a team with a wide receiving core that arguably is the best in the nation, led by Marvin Harrison Jr. So both offenses here, I have a feeling the dam is going to burst on the defenses in this game. If you just take a look at line movements during the week, I think this total has been pushed a little at a time, incrementally, up and up and up to the point to where now I think we're looking at 55 and a half. We weren't looking at that earlier in the week. I think that's the right way, Drew. I think both of these teams are going to go ahead and get their share of points here. A lot of big plays in this game because I think both sides will look to pressure. You almost have to, because if you lay back defensively against either one of these teams, you're probably going to get dissected. So I might look toward over here. I haven't played it yet, but it seems like it should be a pretty good play.
We got primetime, big-time games. Iowa and Penn State, Big Ten Conference, minus 14.5. That's the Nittany Lions at home, 40 being the total. So low total with over a 2-touchdown spread. But I'll tell you, I mean, it's Penn State getting to the point in your mind, Robbie, where it's just bet on or nothing because James Franklin, he'll cover these point spreads, man. He's made it known. He's aware and he wants the boosters happy. That's how I would read it. So it'd be Nittany Lions or pass for me. You got anything here?
It is true, Drew, that, he owns half of the fan base and the other half of the fan base has been trying to get rid of James Franklin for 5 years. So covering point spreads makes the entire fan base happy. But I'll tell you what the other side does. Phil Parker, the DC for Iowa, they pick off passes and run them back. They don't have to score on offense. And we see that over and over again in these style games. If this game ends 24-10 Penn State, it's a big win, but it's an Iowa cover. And I just don't know how you play against Iowa with 14.5 points. The offense with Cade McNamara, ex-Michigan quarterback, was supposed to be better. They lose one of their top receiving threats in this game. Tight end Lachey is out for this one. But still, none of that ever seems to matter with Iowa in these style of games against the big wigs of the Big Ten. I think they can get to 13-14. You know what? Penn State, and I had them last week, and I laid 15.5 against Illinois, and Penn State wasn't real impressive running the football. Now, they got it done defensively. I think they had 4 or 5 interceptions, but I don't know that Iowa's going to allow you to pick them off 4 or 5 times. So I think it's a lot closer than what this line might indicate. As much as I love Penn State, I wouldn't lay this type of price with them. It's a whiteout. It'll be absolutely rocking in Happy Valley. But I think Iowa's proven over the years that plus 14. I'm trying to think in my head as I talk here, Drew, there used to be a number, and that used to be into last year, late last year, there was a number that Iowa has not allowed over 24 points in some ungodly number of names. It's like at least 24 straight games where they didn't allow more than 24 points. And if they don't allow 24 points here, they'll cover 14.5.
Guys, Rob just speaking off the top of his head. I didn't even give him these games. That's how much he knows about college football. So make sure to check him out. Wagertalk.com. He's 6-1 weekend last weekend. And reminder, Viva Tequila Seltzer, sponsor of the show. VivaTequilaSeltzer.com. Get it shipped to your house. 0 sugar, 4.5% ABV. Rob, just 2 games left here. UNLV and UTEP. UNLV off the win over the SEC team. Granted, it was Vanderbilt. Now they're laying 2 on the road, 50 the total. This is a tricky handicap because, to tell you the truth, I've had the Miners circled as a little bit, they haven't performed well, but I think they're a little bit better than the market is pricing. And UNLV, big win, now heading on the road. I kind of like UTEP here. I haven't gotten involved yet. Do you like anything UNLV versus UTEP?
I mean, the situation does scream at you to play UTEP, Drew, but I'm so sick of Dana Dimmel and UTEP that to be staring at a ticket with them losing isn't going to be something that I'll do on Saturday. They were supposed to be real good this year, right? They've got the quarterback, Gavin Hardison. You and I have talked about their offensive line. Dana Dimmel, his key to success is I build an offensive line. It takes me about 4 years, and then I can just turnstile them in and out, and we go. They haven't gone. Offensively, they're stagnant. The other side has Barry Odom in his first year at UNLV. Big win last week already for Barry Odom. He's a defensive whiz. I don't know how much of a whiz you have to be to defend Dana Dimmel because the offense isn't all that sharp. But to take this team on the road, and he has said that Doug Brumfeld will be the starting quarterback here, which is big for UNLV because he's the key to that offense. UNLV, to me, might be the better team, but I don't want them in this spot. I think everything you said rings true. Big win over in it. And that was a dramatic win, right? Vandy blows a field goal. UNLV kicks a field goal. So I don't know if UNLV will handle success all that well, but I don't want UTEP either.
Yeah, it's not like they pushed Vanderbilt around. To tell you, I think Vandy was up like 17-0, and UNLV kind of crept back into that game. But good point. I mean, Barry Odom coaching them up, and also something I recognize from watching that game. Their quarterback Broomfield, very good. The backup, I believe, is the highest recruited quarterback ever to go to UNLV. So that's something to watch. I mean, maybe their backup isn't that bad. That's just kind of something I took away from watching their last game. We got last game on the board. We hit the card's getting bigger here, guys. Might need to add a fifth handicapper, or we could just have Rob Veno or, who else myself do some more games because Robbie's killing it here. But Kent State, Fresno State, we got 48.5 being the total, -4 touchdowns. That's Fresno State. It kind of speaks to Kent State. A lot of people saying maybe the worst team in Division I college football. Do you like anything late night in Fresno?
Yeah, well, it's hard to like Kent State, right? I mean, Sean Lewis left to be the OC at Colorado, and the mass exodus was on. The flash fast offense gone. That's stuff that we love to watch in November on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday nights in Action football. Drew, we don't get to see out of Kent anymore because they have nobody left on that roster. There's been a lot of holes poked into Fresno State's 3-0 record. Some of it rightfully so. I mean, some of the numbers don't correlate to where they are. But I tell you what, Jeff Tedford's offense can score, and there's just no way off of what I've seen of Kent that I feel like 27.5 is even safe enough. I mean, 42-13 gets you a cover with Fresno. They're at home here. It's a long road trip for Kent. I don't know. Nothing to me says go bet Kent. It'd be Fresno or nothing for me.
At Rob Veno Sports on Twitter. Check them out, wagertalk.com. Guys, huge shout out to the chat box. Everybody chiming in. Tease, Jesse, Jay Bly, all you guys in the house chiming in. Feel free to comment below in the comment section on the YouTube channel, wherever you're downloading your podcast at. Every game on the board. Rob, do you have a most confident play for the listeners that you like?
Yeah, let's go back to the Western Kentucky-Troy game, Drew. I really think that game's going over the number here. I think you'll get 60-plus out of it. Last year, again, as I said, 34-27. But I think it's the particulars of that game. The fact that Troy knew what Western Kentucky was going to do. The fact that Troy was a really good defense last year, as good as they are this year. Maybe there's a little slippage in their pass defense. Like I say, they allow 67%. But that game, WKU still did what they do, and they got to 27. I think Troy's going to run the football very well here. Coach Summerall said so. I think over 58.5 is the right way to go. And real quick, I don't want to exclude anybody. So seeing that I talked about Teese and Boofer, let's just point out quick. Jay Bly, Jason, fantastic guy. Been watching me a long, long time, and you, Drew, as well. Back to the Sports Memo days. So we want to shout out to him. We want to shout out to Jesse Schul. Why wouldn't we shout out to a guy watching us from overseas and a great handicapper in his own right? Thanks to everybody for checking us out today.
Where's Jesse? Do you know where he's watching from?
Like Thailand or something.
Awesome.
Jesse's probably throwing a steak on the good. Jesse, let us know where you are. But every time I see pictures of him on Twitter, he's in like Thailand or some paradise place.
Every game on the board getting worldwide attention.
Yeah.
So thanks for chiming in here, Jesse. Guys, please smash that like button. Awesome stuff, Rob. Like always, guys. Next Thursday, 5:05, we'll be going live again. And again, wherever you're downloading your podcast at, every game on the board. And yeah, Jesse chiming in from Thailand. That's awesome, Jesse. So yeah, keep it going. Rob, anything else before we shut it down?
Yeah, just good luck to everybody. Again, we appreciate everybody watching. Drew lets you know he goes through the comments. So chime in if you got anything you want us to answer. We do our best to answer it. If I see Drew respond, then I immediately respond as well. So let us know what's on your mind, and we'll help you out as best we can. Hopefully we get you to cash some tickets. Absolutely,
guys. Comment below. Cash those tickets. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week with week 5. But enjoy the weekend. And yeah, guys, smash that like button for Rob Veno. I'm Drew Martin. That does it for every game on the board.